In 1991, the United States Department of Energy hired more than a dozen linguists, scientists, and anthropologists at a cost of about $1 million to come up with the perfect universal symbol to warn people about the presence of nuclear waste. The academics behind this project believe that such a design is necessary because thousands of years from now, our current languages and symbols will no longer be recognizable. Considering that we ourselves are creating symbols to communicate a message to future humans who may have an entirely different language system, is it possible that beings from another part of the universe are doing the same thing, leaving messages for us here on Earth in the form of mysterious symbols?
Arecibo Observatory, Puerto Rico, November 16, 1974. Early pioneers of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, aimed the world's largest radio telescope at a cluster of stars 25,000 light-years away to send a transmission out into the cosmos. The coded signal consists of binary digits, zeros and ones, that form a message designed to notify other potentially advanced beings of our existence.
This message into space, it was encoded in what's called binary code because it's the simplest around. Listen, we're trying to send a message to the aliens, and because you don't know anything about them, you have to make this as obvious as possible. Now, here's the message over here that was actually sent in 1974, and it starts off with teaching the ABCs to the aliens. Well, not ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, because right up here are the numbers from 1 to 10, but in binary. And anybody who has thought about binary should be able to figure that out, including the aliens. Right underneath that is this funny thing here, has the numbers 1, 6, 7, and so forth. Those are the atomic numbers of the elements that make up our bodies: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus.
The coded message also contained information about our DNA, the figure of a human, a graphic of the solar system, and a graphic of a radio telescope. For decades, SETI scientists wondered if their cosmic message would ever be received or answered. Then, nearly 27 years later, there appeared to be a response. Hampshire, England, August 2001. Next to the Chilbolton Radio Observatory, 2 crop formations appeared in a field. Both were unlike any other ever found.
They were both pixelated, meaning that when you're on the ground, you couldn't perceive what the crop circle was, but once from the air, you could readily identify the pattern.
One of the crop formations that appeared at Chilbolton in 2001 was a face, but the other one was far, far more interesting because it greatly resembled the message that had been sent in 1974. There were very, very subtle differences between the two. They looked identical, but when you actually looked at them, the differences gave a key that seemed to be almost like an answer.
One of them was the fact that the human being that we sent out, when it came back, it had what appeared to look like some kind of grey alien with a large head and a small body. It also had a different system of planets, which suggesting it's a different solar system, and also had a different DNA sequence as well. And so just these 3 things really caught my attention because either it was a brilliant hoax, or it was actually a message that came back and was a response to that original SETI message way back in the 1970s.
And all of these suggested to the crop circle community and the media that we really had received a reply to the Arecibo message of 1974. Can we see it as a reply? Yes, indeed it was. But actually who created it and their exact purpose, will remain a mystery.
Some think the reply may have been to tell us that we are on the right track, communicating in the universal language of the cosmos, binary code. A German mathematician, Gottfried Leibniz, is credited with defining binary code in the 17th century. In turn, Leibniz is said to have credited his inspiration to the 5,000-year-old Chinese text of I Ching, an ancient oracle code used to communicate divine guidance.
The I Ching is a kind of cryptic oracular inscription that you're supposed to decipher, and it was heavily used in divination in early China.
Washington, D.C., May 2014. NASA researchers, in conjunction with SETI scientists, publish a manual enlisting archaeologists and anthropologists in the search for evidence of extraterrestrial communication. The 330-page document, entitled Archaeology, Anthropology, and Interstellar Communication, details means and methods beyond binary code and radio signals that scientists should consider as potential communication from extraterrestrials. Singled out in the document are rock art and carvings, including the Neolithic petroglyphs of Northumberland, England. Although the document does not directly attribute the art to extraterrestrials, it does propose the possibility that it could be tied to otherworldly communication.
Throughout the world, there are petroglyphs and other rock art that are actually quite similar all over the earth. We have to wonder if there's not some parallel that's going on.
I think that we have to start looking at these symbols and ask, how did it originate and from where?
Roswell, New Mexico, September 4th, 2004. While tracking deer in the desert, just 11 miles from the famous Roswell crash site, Robert Ridge came across an object sticking out of the sand. A small, triangular-shaped rock that is completely uniform in color and has a circular design on top of it that isn't etched into the rock, but actually protrudes from it.
Thought it was really cool when I first picked it up. Then got it to the truck, brushed it off, and then I was like, you know, in awe. And I was like pinching myself, what is this? I thought it was very unique and very special right off the get-go, and I still do.
The Roswell rock, as it has come to be known, measures roughly 1.5 inches thick by 2 inches wide. Meticulously etched out of the face of the triangular stone are circles and crescents. Robert Ridge is convinced that this symbol is meant to convey a message. And after studying the rock, he discovered an uncanny correlation between the symbols and the magnetism of the stone.
We found the rock has magnetic properties. A friend of mine kept hounding me about it, and he finally brought a magnet of his own and said, here, do this. So we did, and we found out that it has, it's pretty cool.
But with all the strange qualities that the Roswell rock possesses, what researchers find most fascinating is that the design protruding from its surface has also been found in England, nearly 5,000 miles away.
The pattern of the sun and moon inside a circle that we see on the rock is precisely the same as what we see in a crop circle formation dating to 1996 in southern England.
The crop circle appeared 8 years before Robert Ridge discovered the Roswell rock. a fact that has led some to suggest the rock is simply a man-made copy.
One of my best friends said, it looks like a hippie made it and threw it out in the desert. So I wanted to examine it. We did a 3D CAT scan of the rock. And that's how we found out it hasn't been painted. This hasn't been stuck to the top of the rock. It's not an applique, it's a part of the rock. It doesn't have a magnet inside.
Ancient astronaut theorists also contend that if someone had made the rock as a hoax, it's unlikely they would have left it half buried in the middle of the desert, where it may never be found. But what has truly convinced Robert and many others that the rock is not a man-made fabrication is a comparison that was done under a microscope between the Roswell rock and a sandblasted replica.
We started looking at it under magnification. It blew me away. And I'm like, wow, what is this? It's proven to be everything I thought it was so far, in my opinion.
One of the first researchers to investigate the connection between the Roswell rock and the crop circle in England was investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe. She is convinced that within the design is a message.
If we are dealing with advanced intelligences, and you assume that throughout the universe, all solar systems, all galaxies, there have to be some, we'll call them baselines. Moons, suns, and skies would be the common denominator. Something is trying to teach us humans about astronomy, the moon and the sun and the tracking of the symbols. This is reflecting past, present, and future, and that comes back to what is on that rock.
Fredericksburg, Virginia, 1752. 20-year-old George Washington is initiated into a secret society, the Freemasons. Among his fellow members are many other founding fathers, like Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, and Paul Revere. But what is Freemasonry? What role did it play in the founding of the United States? And what meanings lie behind their many mysterious symbols?
There are a lot of theories about the true origins of Freemasonry. What we know for a fact is that definitely with the age of the Renaissance, this is when people decided to start studying ancient civilizations and see, was there any knowledge in those civilizations that was lost?
According to experts, the Freemasons believe in the idea of acquiring knowledge through largely scientific as well as spiritual means. In the Age of Enlightenment, this included examining the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
Freemasonry was like the main vehicle, if you want, that brought these ideas and principles of the Enlightenment into the New World.
You had the most prominent citizens of the community becoming Freemasons and then associating with one another. They would be discussing the major issues of the day, and certainly the speculations about the plurality of worlds.
Could the growing belief in the possibility of extraterrestrial life have influenced the Founding Fathers' vision for America?
In terms of the Declaration of Independence, there were 56 signers. Of those, 9 were definitely Freemasons. Concerning the signers of the Constitution, there were 39 signers. 13 of them, a clear third, were Freemasons.
But does the influence of Freemasonry explain why Masonic values are woven into the principles behind America's most important documents? And could this also explain how and why Masonic symbols can be found on much of the nation's monuments and architecture?
In the design of Washington, the language of symbols is very important, and that's where we see connections with Freemasonry. The original universal symbol of Freemasonry was a square and compass. The compass is the main tool of the individual. You are the point, and the idea in Freemasonry is that the individual is sovereign. You draw a circle using the compass around you. If you go beyond the perimeter, that's when you start going into knowledge and light. The square is considered a symbol of wisdom. And the letter G stands for the grand architect of the universe.
People have to wonder whether Franklin's beliefs about the plurality of worlds somehow made their way into Masonic symbolism. The same people who were involved in the development of Freemasonry were very interested in Egypt. They were inspired by the idea of ancient wisdom.
Other Masonic symbols found in Washington, D.C. are eerily similar to the icons of ancient Egypt: the Sphinx, the obelisk, the pyramid, and the all-seeing eye.
If you were to pull out a dollar bill right now and look at it, you would see that on one side is a depiction of the Great Pyramid of Egypt with an all-seeing eye at its apex. This is the Great Seal of the United States, and it's an awesome mystical symbol of the eye of God watching us, and also how ancient civilizations were divine in nature, and that the founding fathers were to recreate that here in the United States.
The idea is we need a source of light in order to help us become enlightened. We cannot do it alone. Now, that, to the founding fathers, is whatever is out there that is keeping an eye. And there is a belief that this experiment did not just happen. It was necessary to help the human condition make a major leap. It's like the alignment of the stars. Providence was there, watching and interacting.
Why did this group of 18th century men, who set out to build a nation based on principles of logic and reason, attach such importance to pre-Christian symbols and ancient mysticism? And who, or what, did they believe was watching over them? God, or something else? According to ancient astronaut theorists, the answer can be found in an 1866 lithograph of George Washington that resides in the Library of Congress.
There's a famous painting of George Washington as a Freemason, and over his right shoulder is an unusual scene of Jacob's ladder ascending to heaven and what seems to be some kind of spaceship there in the sky.
In the biblical story of Jacob from Genesis 28, Jacob witnesses angels ascending and descending a ladder from heaven. But in this painting, the ladder comes not from heaven, but out of a dark, round object emitting multicolored lights. Although Jacob's ladder is a popular symbol of Freemasonry, is it possible that this image is attempting to depict something else, something of an extraterrestrial origin? Isolated in the Pacific Ocean, more than 2,000 miles off the coast of Chile, lies one of the most mysterious places on Earth, Easter Island. This tiny landmass is home to nearly 900 monolithic stone statues carved out of volcanic rock. 2,564 miles to the east, isolated 7,000 feet above sea level, are the ruins of a mysterious lost city of the Inca called Machu Picchu. And 10,742 miles away, on the opposite side of the world, lies Mohenjo-Daro, a site where ancient astronaut theorists believe a nuclear explosion may have occurred in the distant past. Curiously, as discovered by researcher Jim Allison, these three sites fall in a straight line around the center of the Earth. And with just a minor margin of error, it also runs through a number of other mysterious ancient sites.
We have the Giza Plateau, we have Nazca, we have Angkor Wat in Cambodia. All of these extraordinarily important, powerful, sacred places were all built in a straight line. Now, this cannot be an accident. This cannot be a coincidence.
The line also encompasses the ancient Sumerian city of Ur, the ruins of Petra, Jordan, and Persepolis, the capital city of ancient Persia.
There are all these different sites that seem to line up. Even if there's a minute degree of deviation, it's never a massive distance from that line.
How is it that so many important ancient sites across the globe all follow this line? What could possibly explain this coincidence?
This is bizarre because only a people capable of flight, or at least being able to look at maps, would be able to do such a thing. Could it be because some of those points were in fact places where our ancestors made contact with extraterrestrials?
There has to be something important in the location, in the geography, in the geometry that indicated to our ancestors that this is sacred ground, that this is a powerful place to put these sacred sites.
Ancient astronaut theorists say evidence of extraterrestrial intervention can also be found by looking at how early humans aligned their most important sites with the stars. At the Giza Plateau in Egypt, the layout of the three Great Pyramids aligns perfectly with the belt stars of the constellation Orion.
Orion's belt is made up of two bright stars and a third dimmer star, which is offset a bit to the left. It's exactly what you see on the ground, two large pyramids in alignment with a third pyramid offset. It looks like they wanted to build stars on the ground, if you like.
Also aligned with these stars are the ancient city of Teotihuacan in central Mexico, the Hopi villages in the American Southwest, and the Thornborough Hengens, a Neolithic landscape complex in northern England. Could it be merely coincidence that so many ancient cultures throughout the world that presumably had no contact with each other all built their most important sites by using celestial alignments?
Look, this is not something that can be explained away as a coincidence. It's time for us to responsibly take a look at what we're really seeing and understand that there is a worldwide, intelligent, highly mathematically precise plan behind these designs.
The idea that even ancient buildings are encoded with information and that where they sit on the planet is also part of an intricate code is a fascinating idea, and one that we're just beginning to understand.
One of the most intriguing motifs that we find repeated throughout the ancient world is that of intertwined serpents.
which looks very much like a DNA strand. You can find this symbol in the depictions of the ancient Sumerian god Ningersida and with the caduceus staff of Greece. But I came across the most interesting example yet when I was in southern Portugal. While investigating the mystery of Atlantis, I met with author Peter Daughtry, who took me on an unexpected detour to the Lagos Museum to show me a giant 6-foot-long stone egg.
Wow.
Some say it could be as much as 7,000 years old. And on top of this egg is a mysterious carving.
This thing up the middle here will resemble the rod, which throughout history has been a symbol of power and of creation. Even Moses had a rod, and in Mesopotamia, the rod was regarded as the symbol of the power of the gods.
And it reminds me of what might be a double helix symbol, which is very interesting because the ancient astronaut theory suggests that a long time ago, advanced extraterrestrials saw that there was potential for intelligent life, and with a target mutation of our genes and theirs, essentially we became who we are today.